Hello and welcome to a special edition of Dishelved with Adam White. Today I'm going to be talking about The Immortality Thief by Taran. It's a book that hasn't come out yet. I got it through NetGalley, and which is a site where you can get on and ask to review books that haven't come out yet. And I did that and got this book and read it and enjoyed it, and I'm going to talk about that today. This ends up being part of Sci-Fi July, and it's an extra video on top of the ones I normally do, since it's a special preview of this book. Let me read you what it says about it. Far off the edge of human existence, beside a dying star, lies a nameless ship abandoned and hidden, lost for a millennium. But there are secrets there, terrible secrets that would change the fate of humanity, and eventually someone will come looking. 1,000 years later, and refugee, criminal, and linguist Sean Wren is made an offer he knows he can't refuse: life in prison, voluntary military service, or salvaging the data in a long dead language from an abandoned ship filled with traps and monsters just days before it's destroyed in a supernova. Data connected to the Philosopher's Stone experiments and into unlocking the secrets of immortality. And he's not the only one looking for the derelict ship. The ministers, mysterious undying aliens that have ruled over humans for centuries, want the data, as does the Republic, humanity's last free government. And time is running out. In the bowels of the derelict ship, surrounded by horrors and dead men, Sean slowly uncovers the truth of what happened to the ship in its final days and the terrible secret it's hiding. Pretty good description of the book there. Um, when I first read it, I was expecting more of a heist kind of theme to it, but it really wasn't. Uh, they're looking for something called the Philosopher's Stone, which was one of the few issues I had with the book because it makes me think of Harry Potter. Because the English version was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Uh, and I just wish they would have called it something else, uh, just because that has so much behind it that it kind of. Plus, it doesn't really make sense why it's called that once they find it. Uh, that was one of the things I had an issue with. It's a minor thing, but um, I don't know why they called it the Philosopher's Stone. It could have been called something else just as easily. Uh, the plot itself is very good. There's a strong plot. The team gets kind of a Suicide Squad option to go to this ship they call the Nameless, because it doesn't have a name. It's 1,000 years old. They don't know where it came from or who was on it. Well, they do know who was on it, but um, they go there searching for this Philosopher's Stone, which is really just information on supposedly immortality. Uh, there's a human band of criminals that are slightly criminals. They're not. I never really got the sense that they were hardened criminals. They just were kind of caught in the wrong place at the right time. And there's another group of Republicans and another group which is a human army, and a group of ministers which is an alien group of kind of androgynous human looking uh, aliens that are also looking for the stone. So you end up with these three groups looking for the Philosopher's Stone, and really that information on immortality. And they have three very different reasons for doing it, but I won't go into those because that you don't learn till towards the end of the book why everybody wants it so bad. Um, that's kind of the start of the book. They all get there. Uh, they end up fighting off monsters on the ship, which they have to discover what they are and where they came from. And there ends up being a group of unlikely people working together to try to find this philosopher's stone, just due to circumstances in the book. And not everyone is who you think they are. And um, it's just a fun ride to go through the story where they're going through this ship trying to find the stone. It's not really a stone, but that's one of the reasons I had an issue with it, called the Philosopher's Stone. But um, it's just this data that they're looking for. And like I said, for multiple different reasons, and all the trouble they run into trying to get it. Uh, it all comes to a head, and um, they just end up, it ends up with you finding out who will get what information from this stone or not. And um, you find out why they're looking for it. Now, you also find out a couple of secrets early on in the book, about a fourth of the way through. Um, and so there is some secrets throughout that you learn as you go along, which are interesting, and uh, interesting reveals, and interesting reveals behind the characters. The main three characters are Sean Wren, who's a linguist, which I thought was an interesting choice for a main character, because you don't usually see a linguist being the main character, especially in a sci-fi. Uh, it's not really a thriller, but uh, in a sci-fi book like this, you just linguists usually aren't the main character, and it's told first person through him. There's also a Republican Army lieutenant called that he calls Lantern Eyes, which I had trouble picturing why he called her Lantern Eyes, but that was just another thing, and that's what she's known as through about half the book before you find out her name. My thing went off there. Um, and then one of the alien ministers is called Indigo, because they wear these collars that flash lights, because they have a language that uses light, which I thought was interesting, which was a new thing that I hadn't really seen before. And so the three of them end up together. That happens early on, so that's not really a spoiler, but it's what they end up doing once they're on the hunt for this philosopher's stone that really makes it interesting. Uh, I thought the characters, especially of Lantern Eyes and Indigo, were very strong characters. I thought they had uh, really good personalities. They were really believable as what they were in the story, and they were believable in the situations that they were in the book. I won't say what, because I don't want to give anything else away, but they were there for in under different circumstances, and they acted like it. So I mean, it was really good. Now, Sean Wren, the main character, that was another one of the minor issues I had with the story. He tries to be kind of the wisecracking guy who keeps things light, but even in situations which should be terrifying in the book, he kind of shrugs it off and tries to make jokes. And it seemed like the author was just trying a little bit too hard to do that. Um, it didn't work in some places. Other places it did, but I mean, I have to be honest, and I thought that he just was a little too jokey at some points. Um, and Another issue I had was that all the points of reference in this story when they're talking about something, and all the technology they're using, they use flashlights because it's dark where they are. They use flashlights, and they mention fly swatters, they mention tablet computers. All the things they use and talk about on this are things that exist currently. And it didn't really give me a futuristic feel whenever they used any of these things. I mean, especially the flashlights, which play a big part in the story. And they come loose, and you screw the lids back on, and all they work again. And it was all, the technology just didn't scream future like I thought it should have. And they have a government that works pretty much like the current U.S. government. uh, Everything seemed kind of contemporary to now as opposed to something in the future. So that was another minor issue I had with the book. I'm trying to think. I thought there was maybe one other thing. There's a section where um, Sean Wren gets under these circumstances where he keeps reliving this one thing, this one scenario over and over again. I thought that went on a bit too long, and left you kind of confused a little bit. But I mean, once you got through it, then you kind of understood what was happening. But it was a Groundhog Day kind of thing. But they were relatively short chapters, so um, I can see why she did it that way. Uh, and I do want to say that the end of the book I thought was really strong. Uh, Despite some of the issues I had with it, um, I thought the last probably 20-25% of the book was really strong. The characters were more well defined, as I mean, they'd been well defined throughout, but uh, you really get a true sense of the characters and what their real motivations are. Uh, I just thought it was a really strong ending to the book. And I also, one of the other things I had was that Sean Wren, the main character, had been through some pretty dark stuff that would be pretty hard to forgive. And he seemed a little too forgiving the whole time about it. Uh, it really just, I thought, I thought there should have been parts that should have been a little bit darker than what they were, because, like I said, he tries to keep a jokey kind of atmosphere. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I really thought that there should have been parts where there should have been a little bit more terror in it than what there was. That said, the ending was really strong. Uh, the setup they have at the end with certain characters that are together really kind of makes me want a sequel to this. I think a sequel done in the right vein of story would be a very interesting book, and I would definitely read it. It, like I said, is really strong. Now, the very, very end, the last few lines of it, I had an issue with because it was a little bit cliche. But the rest of the ending was so strong, I was willing to overlook it. Uh, so overall, I thought this was a good book. It's not my favorite book, but a good book. I believe it's her first novel. Uh, it was a good effort. Uh, like I said, the plot was strong, and especially the last, you know, fourth of the book, I thought really worked well and kind of made up for some of the inconsistencies in the earlier parts of the book. So overall, I would recommend giving this a read. Uh, it's a good book. Like I said, the ending is really strong, and mostly you like the characters, and that's what I think makes the most of any book, is that you like the characters. And I did like these characters, and I did like what they did and what they went through and how they ended up because of it. So, The Immortality Thief by Taran Hunt, I believe it comes out in October, so you might want to keep a watch out for that. It's a pretty good book, and I would recommend reading it. And I want to thank, I can't remember who the press is now that are doing it, but I'd like to thank them for the opportunity to read it beforehand on my Kindle uh, before it came out. This is the first time I've done anything like this, so I really appreciate that from Taran Hunt and the publishers, which I wish I could remember who did it. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Solaris, October 11th, it's supposed to come out. So keep an eye out for this book. I have a feeling the author will get stronger as she goes along with new books. Like I said, I do hope to see a sequel to this. And thank you for hanging out with me this extra time. And I appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week for my regular Sci Fi July.